just wanted to say something about damage control.
Yes, please.
That's what I was going to.
Yeah,
Right,
and
you
I-
guys did damage control.
Well, I mean, this is fresh in my mind because it just happened. As I say, I do this thing for the Smithsonian called Department of Innovation. And someone on the Smithsonian staff created the logo for it. And the logo was, you know, just, it was a logo. And it was a logo that was like gears were supposed to go together. Well, someone who I guess had a mechanical background looked at this and said, you know what, those gears would never turn the way they're designed. And, you know, who knew? You know, who knew? It was you know, sometimes a logo is just a logo, you know? And so, but what happened is this person sent this to Michelle Malkin. Michelle Malkin posted it in her blog on Sunday and used it as an example of federal government ineptitude and waste. And so since that time, there's been a flood of comments from people saying, again, this is an example of what the federal government, they can't even get a damn logo right. And can you imagine an agency that allowed this to go through the whole process and approved this thing? And I'm telling you, it was like 2 or 3 people said, yeah, fine, great, go. And so the question was, how do you respond to that? And then it got continually more personal, and there were some very nasty things said about the illustrator, and then that spun off to me by association because I was writing it. And you're very tempted to get in there and slug it out, but the way I responded was simply, thanks for pointing this out. It's great that so many people pay such attention to detail, and we'll just make sure that those gears work. We didn't intend it to be an interactive logo, you know, but you know, people make a point, and there it is, you know. Kudos to you for noticing this, and you know, it's difficult too because it's the Smithsonian, and even though this is Smithsonian.com, which is separated from the Smithsonian.org, nobody knows that. In fact, that was Michelle's Malkin point. This is the federal government wasting money because they can't even do a logo, and so you know, there's a real skittishness at the Smithsonian. There was first the first reaction was, well, let's just change the logo. I said, yeah, but you have to acknowledge it. And you have to reach out, because if you just change it, it's like you're not even conversing with them anymore. And one thing I will say, when I started doing social media consulting, I'd go into organizations, and this isn't so much the case anymore, but for a while there, you'd ask them, who's doing your social media? And they'd say, the interns. And I said, okay. The reasons being that, well, they were young and they were cheap. And they get this stuff. And my position was always, would you have the rookie cop handle a hostage situation? You know? I mean, essentially, worst case scenario, you can have the equivalent of a hostage situation here. It can be very explosive and provocative, and you have to have someone there who can take abuse and deal with it in a very tactful, diplomatic way, and kind of turn the conversation around and acknowledge the criticism and say, I hear you. You know, it's like the therapist, I hear you. But here's what we're thinking. And the worst person you could get, this is not to knock interns, I mean, they could do it, but that takes a level of sophistication and maturity. So, and that's why I tell people, you can't just put social media off in the corner with the young people because they know how to do it. You know, it's much more, in some ways, it's much more sophisticated than a lot of types of communication because you have to respond, you have to interact and do it in a tactful way. So, and I'm sure you have many more.
Well,
stories
no,
about it.
actually all of mine are negative. You know, he did it right, don't do what I did. I mean, rule number 1, stop digging. Okay? Rule number 2, apologize immediately. Say they're right, even if you're right. You know, thank them. If they want you to change something or take something down, take it down immediately and apologize. And there will still be a shitstorm. Believe me, that's happened to me. There will still be a shitstorm. And you have to step away and let the shit fall for a while. And then come in and apologize again. And just keep apologizing. I've learned that the hard way. I lost my job on it. I lost several jobs on it. because I would get involved in the comment threads. And I would let my emotions take over. I write from an emotional place. Usually, you know, I'm passionate about something, and that's why I'm writing. And you have, that's a good thing. But when the shitstorm hits the fan, you have to step away from that place. Go get some coffee, go take a break, go for a jog, come back tomorrow. And if you can't handle it, get away and let somebody else who's not attached to it handle it. And let them apologize to you. Don't do like I did, do like he does.
Actually, I was there for one of Dana's, and I sent an email, and I said, you may not be right, but you're not wrong. And this guy just flew off, and we could never tell if he was, you know, English was his first language or what. But he commented every time he could for the next 3 weeks. And it was essentially an issue like whether or not your gears work.
Yeah.
It's two-dimensional, dude.
Yeah.
But you can't say that, because we're going to lose readers. Really, at Apple, we used to call it, it's not content, it's blessed asset. Well, in blogging, it's blessed audience, and that's really what we're going for all the time.
It can be hard to tell the difference, though. I mean, the Steve Jobs thing back in '09, I mean, that was a shitstorm. But what I noticed is that gradually the other side kind of came in and it became more balanced. But you still have to step away from it. You know, and if you're absolutely 100% right, you're solid on your ground, step away from it, trust the audience. That's a real hard lesson to learn, is trust them. And that's really kind of the first rule of internet stuff, whether it's blogging or social media or anything else, is that you have to trust them to be the judge and the jury. You know, you can't, you're not always the best judge of what you did.
Can I do a quick story? When I was just starting out, I was also putting stuff on Macaw alumni blog. I brought cell phones to the United States. And one guy got really nasty. This is not what this blog is for. Rang, 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 rang. And so it was like a Sunday morning, I read the comment, I said, oh, okay, I'll never do it again.
What's his first name?
No, Craig's my buddy. Craig got on it and slammed the guy. But by Monday night, 6 of my former Macaw property presidents had all gotten on and said, I've been working with Dick Davies for 20 years. He's the real deal. This is what we need. And where the hell do you come from? Turns out it was an M&A guy who had never been with Macaw who was looking to flip some radio properties. It had never happened to me before, so I didn't have any perspective. So when we're talking about should we open the comments or not, what you need to do is grow some perspective real fast. And this too shall pass. And again, I got to say, there's something going on with Google because we used to get spammed about, you know, buy the sunglasses and sandals. We don't get it anymore. And ZD gets killed with it. So I don't know what the story is.
They do get killed.
Well, and there's also, just to reiterate, that there's a certain level of self-policing that happens within a community. We certainly saw this discovery in the very early days of when we did forums. I would always get calls from general managers of the various networks saying, someone has a negative comment about our show, you have to take it down. And I'd say, you think you have problems now? You take that down, you're really going to have problems. Just give it some time. And what would happen is the community would come together and they would say, be gone, Satan. You know, you came in here and you kind of mess this thing up and you're saying nasty things. And more often than not, much more often than we anticipated, the community would turn things around. And you didn't have to go in there and start slapping hands. You know, people would say, just back off, you know, can't you see, blah, 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 blah. And they're, you know, you have to take some faith in the notion that they're there because they like what you're saying and they agree with you to some extent. They keep on coming back and they'll support you if they think you're being attacked unfairly.
Cool. What do we got more to do in the check marks? Carol, do you want to say something?
Did you want worst cases?
Worst cases. Man, I got a problem with that. I believe that evaluation is what do we do right, what do we do next. The reason is anybody who has low blood pressure can come up with a problem. So I tend to look at what we do. Yes.
I think we have to comment. Well, you have to question the audience.
All right. What time we got?
You can start to wrap it up now, or if there's consensus, you can go a little bit longer.
All right.
Why don't we ask them for questions?
All in favor?
No.
Shall
Question.
we go for another 50? Can we do 50?
No, we cannot do 50.
No.
15.
It is up to them.
Yeah. You look good?
5 or 10?
15?
Let's have them
And
do it
you
next
guys
time.
ask the questions.
You guys ask the questions, we're gonna shut up. Your turn. Or we can go have some food.
Yes,
Is there a gold standard out there for setting forum goals for social media? Like, has somebody come forward and the corporate community and said, here's my policy, I ask that everybody use it?
every
Seem
20
to
days it
succeed.
changes.
Not yet.
They're trying to, but what we find, Frank Strickland, who runs the IBM Center for Government, the Center of Business for Government, was saying to me, culture is the part that's not written in the rules. And then he said, so what happens when you write a lot more rules? The culture gets harder to define. What I found is 2 posts a week, 10 sentences, 5 paragraphs, and try and talk about the positive side of things.
But I think she's also talking about, people
Absolutely.
tweeting and people,
I would
if
say,
it's-
hell
if
yes,
it's
tweet
within-
more.
If it's within your corporate framework and they're using your corporate ID, you can say thou shalt not, or you can, don't do it. But, how are you gonna stop them on their own dime? Really? I mean, that's crazy.
But I do think you need to say, if they are recognized as someone who works for an organization, and this, again, there's a lot of fuzzy areas here, but if they're people the public would generally associate with them, with that organization, they have to be really careful about what they say even on the private side. Now, you can't tell them what not to do, but, everything's a public room.
Yeah, Mike Rowe knows not to say the Ford sucks. Just knows.
Mike Rowe is actually very good at going
maybe.
on the message.
Would you explain
Yeah.
that story?
The message board stuff?
The Ford Sox thing.
Oh, I don't, what is that story?
You want to tell it or you want me to tell it?
I didn't know I'd tell a story.
Ford's advertising agency. One of the young interns tweeted
Oh, right.
his personal opinion about Ford, and it wasn't bad,
Yeah.
but it wasn't on message. So it was the most retweeted thing they'd had in this Twitter campaign. And they had to burn the guy publicly. And what they were saying was this was a clear failure of management because they were trying to get something out of Twitter which was, in the moment, top of mind, that kind of routine. And it just was not on message, so they blew the guy away, and it wasn't a bad thing to say.
Yeah, and that's where the lack of a social media policy, and they certainly have one there, but you have to do it and also make it clear that it's always going to be changing. Because there are situations that none of us can even imagine now that will come up. But it's really important to be diligent. You can't say, here's our social media policy, we'll look at it in a couple years. No, you have to keep on coming back and keeping that fresh. And one thing, this is a little off, but I just want to, before I forget it, don't lose sight of the opportunity to mix and match within a blog so that you're linking out the video, you're linking out the photo galleries, It's taking some of the weight away from the writing, not only in terms of the writing you have to do, but also what you're asking your audience to do. And trust me, they see that as a nice little thing you're giving them. Oh, you turned me on to this really cool slideshow or this really cool video. And sure, you're driving them somewhere else, but that's fine. Your whole point is you want them to have a good experience. And if you can give them a good experience by sending them elsewhere, and it also changes it up some. I mean, I like to end the innovation thing with either a video at the end or some sort of slideshow and say, here, go, have fun. So don't feel like you have to be able to write.